everybody, today we're going to make a really fun project with the Kimberbell Ornament Applique 1. This is a digital download you can get from Kimberbell. I'll have the link below in the description box. It comes in 5x5, 6x6, and 8x8 sizes. We're going to be working with the 5x5 today. I'm going to have a free download on my website with notes for today's project. Included in your download will be this coloring page. You can think about your fabrics, grab some colored pencils, color it in, or if you're using different prints, patchwork, whatever, you can write everything down. This will help you keep track of everything. We're going to have an applique star at the top, our ornament applique blocks, tree trunk, and background fabrics. I've designed this project to be a quilt as you go, meaning we're going to work on one block at a time and then put it all together at the end. If you'd prefer to make the quilt top and then use your clear blue tiles or sewing machine to quilt it, all you do is take the finished sizes of the block, which is 6x8, and you can sew it together and quilt it after. I have some great videos on my channel about clear blue tiles. I'll link them below. If you're new to clear blue tiles, I have one that's specifically for beginners. We open the box, we go through the instructions, and I show you how to use that. Let's get started with our project. I'm working with the 5x5 size today, and I'll make 9 ornament blocks. I believe I can fit 2 per hoop, so I'll film 2 of them. I'll show you how to do everything, all the different steps, and then we'll work on putting it all together at the end. The fabric for my ornament blocks comes from a Kimberbell Cup of Cheer charm pack. I was so glad to find this on my shelf. The measurement for the ornament fabric is 4.5 inches squared. Since I'm working with the charm pack, which is 5 inches squared, I just left these as the full charm pack, and I cut a stripe and I cut an ornament cap. For my ornament fabrics, I did put fusible on the back of the stripe. For your fusible, you can use Kimberbell fusible. I use some Pellon SF 101 for this because we've got some big pieces that are using fusible, and I had more of the Pellon on hand. We're going to need 9 tree fabrics. That's where your ornaments are going. 16 background fabrics. I'll be using white for that. 1 fabric for the tree trunk, and we're going to do an applique star. You've seen my ornament fabrics. Let me show you everything else. I'm making my tree this light mint green. This is the Kona 2024 color of the year. I had a layer cake in my closet and I thought this would be fun. A little bit different than traditional green. You can use solids, prints, whatever you like, different colors of green. You can make a pink tree. You're only limited by your imagination. My color for the trunk came from a Fat Quarter bundle. I was part of a Fat Quarter Solid of the Month Club a few years ago. This was the Cardinal Solid. I don't know the name of the color. It was brown. Pulled it out of here. This is my background fabric. It's a Wilmington print. I got this from Missouri Star Quilt Company. All it said in the selvage is Wilmington prints, so it's a Wilmington fabric. I've made a star for the top of my tree. This is a Kimberbell Basic, and I have some of Kimberbell's double-sided Bond Pro on the back of that. To get the star shape, I used my AccuQuilt star die. I used the biggest star. If you happen to have this die, it works really well. If you don't have that, you can go online and search for star applique, star outline, print out a star that you like, trace it and cut it. If you don't want to use a star, you can use an angel, you can put another ornament on top, whatever you'd like. You can even embroider a star. You're also going to need some binding. This is Lori Holt Cozy Christmas fabric. The selvage says 2016. You might be able to find this online. Let's go over the sizes for everything. All of these fabrics I've cut 8x10, and I did put fusible on the back of these. We're going to be doing background quilting. Personal preference, if you don't want the fusible, you don't have to use it. You need 9 pieces for your tree, 1 for the trunk, and 16 for your background. All of this is detailed in the free download that will be linked below. And since we're doing quilt as you go, you need batting. I have 25 7x9 squares of batting. We're going to do block by block quilting on this using a 6x8 size. When you do block by block, add an inch to figure out your batting. So 6x8, we need 7x9, 25. I'm going to use 2 different Kimberbell background quilting files. KDQ 039 Christmas 3, I will link that below. This is Christmas trees. And KDQ 105 Winter comes from the Clear Blue Tiles Essential Set, and it comes as a block by block or as a clear blue tile format. We'll be using the block by block format today. To attach our backing, we're going to do Stitch in the Ditch. You want a piece 34 by 44 inches. That gives you a few inches all the way around. That'll make it easy to work with. And your binding should be 150 inches long. I'm using 2.5-inch strips. If you're working with yardage like I am, if you take 4 with the fabric strips, you get about 168 inches, so that's more than enough. You'll also need some stabilizer. I would go with a light mesh cutaway stabilizer for this. I'm going to use mine as a wall hanging. You can also use it as a table topper, and if you really like it, there's larger ornament sizes. You could easily make a big full-size quilt or a crib quilt or a lap quilt. This would make a really cute baby quilt. If you have baby's first Christmas, kids, grandkids, you could put Minky or Cuddle on the back. Then they'd probably all fight over it. But think about that if you want a bigger quilt. For my background quilting, I'm going to use white. Let me go over the rest of my thread colors. I have 3 colors of ornament caps. I have an aqua, a green, and a navy. For the aqua caps, I'm going to use this color. For the navy, this color. And for the green, which honestly is the hardest to match, I'm going to use this color. I'm going to start with a couple pieces of the background fabric. I'm going to show you how to do background quilting in case you've never done that before. We'll go ahead and do 1 hooping of this. I think I can fit 2 in a hoop, so I'll show you how to do that. I have my 9.5 by 14-inch hoop. Got my stabilizer in, hand tighten, screwdriver tighten. I'll also need 2 pieces of batting and 2 pieces of my background fabric. I'm on a baby lock meridian. I have my files on USB. We're going to start with the background quilting for the white fabric. All we're going to do is put background quilting on this fabric. I have an Ornament Applique 1 folder where I've added my quilting files. For the background, I'm going to use this KDQ 105 file. It's the winter file from Clear Blue Tiles, 6 by 8 block by block. So if you have Clear Blue Tiles, that's where I got this. If you're using my measurements, any 6 by 8 block by block file will also work. Going to hit set. I want to do 2 of these at once. I'm going to hit my edit button. In order to fit 2, I have to rotate this. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. Drag and drop, or you can use your arrows. I'm going to hit OK. To duplicate this, you have 2 keys. You have a duplicate key and then what's called a border duplicate key. When you use the regular duplicate key, it'll complete 1 from start to finish and another from start to finish. When you use this key called a border duplicate key, it'll do step 1, step 1, step 2, step 2. I use this whenever I'm doing something that's the same. It's a lot easier for me. We are going to put 1 underneath, so you can see the up and down is already highlighted. +1. There it is. I can use a little bit of extra space though. They're right on top of each other. You've got buttons down here, space apart, bring together. We use the space apart. That's as far as it can go. You can see I can fit 2 in my large hoop. I'm going to hit OK. And I'm going to save this to my machine since I have to do a total of 16 of the background fabrics. That way I don't have to do all of these at once. I can do a couple. Maybe I want to take a break, work on something else, and I can come back to it later. So I'm going to save that on my machine. Hit embroidery. We're ready to get started. You want a neutral thread on your machine. I have white. I'm going to work with white throughout the process for this. I'm leaving that on for my background quilting. If you're changing colors for your background quilting, remember to swap your thread out before that step. The first thing that's going to stitch out is a batting placement line, and it's going to stitch 1 up at the top and 1 at the bottom because I'm doing 2 in 1 hooping. Both my batting placement lines have stitched. You want to place your batting. I'm working with Hobbs 80/20 batting today. It's left over from a long arm project. It's a little bit thicker than Kimberbell batting, so I want to tape this down. I don't want this to slide. You can see this part of my hoop is off my machine. So if I want to put something here and I want to tape it, I need to put my hand underneath to support it. Otherwise, I'll distort my stabilizer in my hoop, and I don't want to do that. Going to add some tape right there, and I'm going to add another piece right here. I don't want this to slide. The next step is our batting tack down line. I'm using Kimberbell paper tape. I'll link that below in case you're new to embroidery. I'm going to stitch the tack down line. You want to remove any tape that you've got, and then you want to trim any of the batting that's outside of this tack down line. Once you've got these trimmed, you're going to stitch out your fabric placement line. I had another weird thread break again. I went ahead and changed my needle. I'm using a regular 7511 embroidery needle. It's been a while since I changed my needle. Let's hope that solves the problem. I'm going to continue with my fabric placement line. The placement lines have stitched. I want to place my background fabric. This is my white fabric, so I want to check and make sure there's no dark hairs, you know, dog hair, cat hair, whatever kind of pet you have behind that. We've got 3 dogs, black and white, so there's a good chance that there's dog hair behind things. Make sure there's no stray threads, anything like that. You want to place both pieces of your fabric. If you're doing 2 in 1 hooping, make sure you've covered your placement lines. I'm going to add some tape to that, and then we'll stitch out the fabric tack down. I put a piece of tape up here, right here, which is holding both of these, and on the bottom. Let's stitch the tack down lines. Once your fabric tack down lines have stitched, you're ready to do your background quilting. The quilting is done. It looks beautiful. I need to make a total of 16 of these, so 8 hoopings total. I'll do the rest off camera. We're going to move on to making some of our ornament blocks. We're going to work on our ornament blocks. We need to start by loading our background quilting. I'm going to use a different background quilting for this part. This is the part that's going to be your Christmas tree. I've got KDQ039 Christmas tree. I'll link that below for you. I got this from Kimberbell. Going to do the same thing I did last time. Edit, rotate, 90 degrees. We'll go ahead and move it all the way to the top. Hit OK. Border duplicate key, just like before. I'm going to add one below. I want to stretch that out. This way it'll work through the background quilting before it works through the applique. Let's hit OK. And now we're going to add our applique. Add. And it's on USB. I'm working with the 5x5 today. I'm going to hit set. You can see it's not where I need it to be. We're going to hit edit. I'm going to rotate this one 90 degrees. So right now it's centered here and here. Rather than me picking it up and trying to drag and drop, I'm just going to hit this up key. I'm going to get it centered on my top block. Here's where you can get creative if you'd like to get really creative with this. You could place some of your ornaments closer to the top, some closer to the bottom, so when you put your quilt together they'll be kind of staggered, like they're hanging in different places on the branches. I'm leaving mine in the center. I'm going to keep this simple. I'm going to hit OK. I did try to do border duplicate on this. It gave me some problems as far as spacing, but there also is something else I want to do with this block, and I want to make sure that I do this each time I stitch out. I'm going to use my add key. I'm going to drop in a brand new one, and I'll show you why. 5x5 again. There it is. I am going to edit, rotate, 90 degrees. I'm going to move it down and get it set just like my other one. That looks good. I'm going to hit OK, and you can see they look exactly the same, which is fine. If you want them all lined up the same, facing the same directions, all the hooks going in the same way, you're good to go. I'm going to hit this button here. I believe it's called the mirror button. If I'm wrong, somebody correct me in the comments. Do you see what that did? Now that you mirrored it, if you want, you can rotate it again. 90. Look at that. Now I'm going to have one ornament facing this way and one ornament facing this way. We need to do a total of 9 ornaments. I'll do 4 hoopings of this, and then for the last hooping I'm going to do that with my trunk fabric. I'll show you how to do that. I'm going to hit OK. Save it to my machine or save it to your USB. These are ready to go. We just worked through all of this for the background quilting on our white fabric. I'll go ahead and set all of this to music. It's the exact same steps, and then I'll stop after that and we'll work through our ornament applique together. The background quilting is done for both of my blocks. It looks great. The first thing we're going to stitch out is called an ornament placement line. It's going to stitch out a circle. Grabbed one of my ornaments. I want to place that and completely cover that round placement line that just stitched out. I'm going to put a piece of tape on that, and then we're going to stitch the tack down line. The tack down line has stitched. You need to take off the tape, trim everything outside of the tack down line. I've got that trimmed. This is going to have a satin stitch going around it, so if it's not perfect, don't worry about it. The next thing we're going to stitch is the cap placement line. You want to grab your cap fabric and place that over that placement line. You can see it's a little rectangle. Tape that in place. Then you'll stitch the tack down and trim just like you did for the circle. I've got that trimmed. The next thing it's going to stitch is the placement line for the center stripe. You want to cover the placement line with your striped fabric. I'm going to add the piece of tape, hold it in place. You're going to tack it down and trim it. You've got all of your fabrics tacked down and ready. The next thing we're going to stitch is the decorative outline around the ornament. I didn't even think about picking threads for the ornaments. I found a nice pink for this. This is the color pink I'm using in case you have Floriani threads and you're using the same cup of cheer charm pack. I'm going to use that for the satin detail around the ornament. I realized I forgot to turn on my camera. I did all the satin stitching around in the pink. It looks great. I'll have the camera on for the second ornament so you'll get to see it go super speed. The next thing it's going to stitch out is the detail around the ornament cap. I've got a blue thread for that. This was one of the threads I showed at the beginning. I'm going to switch to this green. I showed this color at the beginning. I'm going to stitch out the stripe satin outline, and then it also has a stripe detail. My first ornament is done. It looks great. I'm so happy with the way that turned out. I'm going to film the next one fast. You can watch it stitch out to music because you've seen how to stitch these out. You know all of the steps. They all stitch the same. These are both done. They look great. We need a total of 9. Let's load our files to do one ornament and the trunk. Both of these are going to have the same background quilting. I'm going to use my background quilting with the Christmas trees, the KDQ 039. I'm going to set the first one just like I did before. Rotate. We're going to move it to the top. Hit OK. I'm going to duplicate one below. Space it out. That's ready to go. Since I used the border duplicate key, it's going to quilt both of these at the same time. So once that's done, I'm going to put the trunk fabric here. That's going to be done. I'm going to place my ornament fabric here because I've got my big hoop on my machine, so I can just slightly pull the hoop off and do all of my cutting and trimming right there. We need to add one ornament, 5 by 5. I need to rotate that. I'm going to move it down, get it centered. Looks good. I'm going to save that to my machine just in case. Now I'm ready to stitch that out. We just did this twice, so I'm not going to film this. Here's how that hooping turned out. I did add this color. I thought the white thread on the brown fabric looked a little too contrasting. I didn't like the way that was looking. If you're not sure how something's going to look, just stretch your thread across the fabric. See, like this would not look good on the green unless I wanted to stand out. I could tell this looked better than the white. When I did this ornament, I added a red. This is a good Christmas red. And just for fun, I'm going to show you this. In the video, we're going to go from this to cutting our blocks, but I actually have a bunch left to quilt out. I filmed all the examples. Now I need to do the rest of my ornaments and the rest of the white. I'm going to work on my applique on this machine. And then over here, if you've watched some of my earlier videos, you've seen the Baby Lock Pathfinder. I'm going to do the background quilting on my white fabric on this machine at the same time. I have all of my blocks here, all my ornament blocks and all of my background blocks. I need to trim these. These will work with an orange pop ruler. Let me show you how to use one of those if you've never done that before. If you've got 2 blocks from one hooping, you want to separate them first. If you have extra stabilizer on the side, you can cut this off and save it for another project. Rotating cutting mat really helps. I have an Omnigrid mat. Kimberbell makes one that's square. I'll link that below. That works really well with the orange pop rulers. I've had this one for years. I have my ornament block. Remember we did 6x8 background quilting? There's an orange pop ruler for that. It has the measurement right here, 6.5 by 8.5, because remember you sew these blocks together, 1/4 inch seam allowance, so your finished size is 6 by 8. You line it up right along that outside stitch line. Grab the next one. This is the biggest one in the set. That helps you have a place to put your hands when you cut with these rulers. These you cut this way. It's a little bit different. I'm going to slide this up a little bit so it stays on camera. They have notches in all the corners because you start with your blade inside the notch and you go to the top notch. Right-handed blade. If you have a left-handed blade and the blade is on this side and you're left-handed, do the same thing just on this side, but I'm right-handed. Make sure everything's lined up, and I'm actually going to grab my little container of clips. I use it to help hold down the part of the ruler opposite where I'm cutting. Put it in here where this notch is, slide it all the way over. There's a little bit of wiggle room, so slide it all the way over to the side there and push down all the way to the top. We're going to turn. This is where having a little paperweight, whatever you want to call it, comes in handy. It just helps keep everything settled. Looks like I shifted my ruler a little bit there anyway. Okay, relined up all the way over. Turn, 2 more sides. And left side. We're all the way around. What makes these rulers great for this type of project is when you use a regular ruler over a block like this, the ruler kind of bobbles up and down because you've got your applique, fabric, batting, and the stabilizer. This is all done. I'm going to cut all my blocks off camera and then we'll come back. We'll have a little ornament fashion show and then I'll talk about putting your quilt together. I have all my background pieces trimmed, my trunk piece, and my ornaments. Let's take a minute and I'll hold each ornament up. That way if you're working with a cup of cheer charm pack and you like what you see, you can duplicate my ornaments. I'll go ahead and set this to music and then after the little ornament fashion show, we'll talk about putting this together. If you have Floriani threads, these are the threads I used. I'll also type all of the thread color numbers in the description box below. Now we need to lay out our blocks and put this together. You can use this coloring page to help you lay out your blocks. The blank blocks are my white background, trunk blocks, ornament blocks, and this block at the top is a white background, but that's where I'm going to place my star. To put this together, I'm going to sew 1 row at a time, 1/4 inch seam allowance, sew the rows together. I'll press them open. I'm going to attach my backing with stitch in the ditch, and then I'll put on my binding. I already have videos on my channel showing stitch in the ditch and binding in detail. I'm going to link those below. Something people ask from time to time is, do you need another layer of batting between your blocks and your backing? That's optional, but with a project like this you need to think about the size of your block. These are going to finish at 6 by 8. I used Hobbs 80/20 batting. If you go to the Hobbs website or look on their packaging, here's their website. If you scroll down a little bit, they've got a chart that talks about distance between stitches. All brands of batting have somewhere on there, either on their website or on their packaging, the maximum distance between stitches. See how this says 4 inches maximum, and it also gives you a shrinkage percentage for washing, the amount of shrink you can expect, although I've washed with this batting before and I don't think it shrank that much. If you're going to be washing it, you need to pay attention to this. Let's say I wanted to make a baby quilt out of this and do a bunch more ornaments. My block is 6 by 8. If I add extra batting when I do stitch in the ditch, that extra batting is more than 4 inches apart, so that means when I wash it, there's a chance box, we're going to have a problem with that. So you want to keep that in mind if you're adding that extra layer of batting. If I was going to make a big quilt with this that was going to be washed a lot, I might opt to do this the other way, where you put your applique on and then you do the quilt sandwich and use your clear blue tiles for all over quilting. If you've never used your clear blue tiles for all over quilting, I've got a great video about that. I will link that below. I need to go pick out some backing fabric and sew this together. We'll come back and we'll have a look at the completed project. Here's the finished quilt. This finishes 30 by 40. Let me go in and give you a close-up of everything. Super cute. Love the way it turned out. Love these little ornaments. Look at that. So cute. The binding looks great. I used red thread for the binding. The quilt as you go looks really nice. The plus of making it quilt as you go is once all your blocks are done, you just sew it together and you're done. Quilt as you go, so to speak. Look at that. Aren't they pretty? Let's go up toward the top. I could have made my star at the top a little bit bigger. You'll see that. But it looks really cute. I like it. Make sure if you use the double-sided Bond Pro to attach your star, do your stitch in the ditch first and then iron the star on top, or you have to stitch in the ditch your way around it. I hope you've enjoyed making your Ornament Applique 1 Christmas tree wall hanging or mini quilt tabletopper with me. There'll be a downloadable information sheet on my website for free, linked below. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. I'll be bringing you more Kimberbell fun, including the Feeling Festive Bella Box projects. We're going to start off with the Polar Bear Rice Warmer. Watch for that coming soon. Any comments or questions or projects you'd like to see, please leave them in the description box below. There's a link to this Ornament Applique 1 in my description box below. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.